Welcome back to my channel. I'm Joe with Smokin Joe's Pit Barbecue. So Goldees Barbecue, which was named the #1 barbecue spot in Texas by Texas Monthly, recently changed the way they hold their briskets. Now if you notice, I said the way they hold their briskets, not the way they cook their briskets. I believe the way they cook their briskets is exactly the same, but their holding process has changed just a little bit and is taking over the internet. Everybody's cooking this Goldees style brisket. Now there's no doubt this brisket is going to be fantastic, but is it really a game changer? Well, today we're going to try that. Stay tuned. All right, let's trim up our brisket. I am starting with a Creekstone brisket. Now this is a upper 2/3 choice, and I believe that this is the exact same brisket that Goldees Barbecue is using. So I'm gonna trim this up. And I'm also gonna be talking about the way Goldees has changed their holding style. Now I've watched a few videos from Jerby's Barbecue, which is one of the owners of Goldees Barbecue, and he has used in the past butcher paper when they wrap and hold their briskets. Now they would pull their briskets at about 195 degrees, wrap them in butcher paper without using any tallow or anything like that. They would just spray the butcher paper with water to get it a little bit more pliable, and then they would wrap it up and hold it. Again, 195 degrees, and that seems to work for them. So recently, they switched the way they hold their briskets from using butcher paper to using aluminum foil. So in addition to switching to foil, they also started adding tallow to the foil wrap so it moistens up the surface. This brisket is essentially going to be a no-wrap brisket. Now I've done several no-wrap briskets, but I've never actually wrapped them up in foil and put tallow and held them, which is what we're going to do on today's video. Now the trim is very important. You got to make sure you have that aerodynamic look on the brisket, almost like a sports car. So all I'm doing here is taking off some of the fat off the top, some of the silver skin. Some of the silver skin is okay, but if you have a large pocket, you definitely want to take that off. So just in case you guys are wondering, I am using a fillet knife from Dalstrong. This is the Valhalla model, super sharp, as you can see. Absolutely love trimming briskets with this knife. I think it's safe to say that 90% of the barbecue joints in Texas have a very similar trim style. So all I'm doing here is removing the mohawk so the brisket lays nice and flat. I'm going to remove some of the fat, and you can feel it because if it's really hard, you definitely have some room to trim. So I'm going to trim off some of this fat. So because this brisket is going to go untrimmed the entire way, you want to make sure you have a nice fat cap on the top. Not too much, but make sure you leave enough fat on the top. All right, so I just flipped the brisket over to where the mohawk used to be, and this fat needs to be removed as well. So just go in there and take that completely off. And one thing you can do is take a little bit more off the point, the top of the point. It's a lot of fat anyway. Just bring that down. Continue to round off your point and remove another layer of this fat right here. All right, so this brisket is looking really good. Now for the final step, is we got to round off the front of this brisket. So I just take my fillet knife, start all the way in the back, take the edge off, turn your knife, and then slice it straight this way. Just like that. And this corner, all I do is cut off the corner. It's a 3-step process. 1, 2, round that off, and then 3 right here. Real simple. You got a nice bullnose brisket. All right, this brisket looks good right there. So now one thing that has changed again at Goldees, because I've seen a few of their videos, Jerby used to use mustard as a binder only on the fat cap. Now they're using warm water, and according to Jerby, that kind of loosens up the fat and allows the rub to stick a little bit better. And I like that process, so I'm going to do that. Again, a little bit of warm water. And I am going to be using the Goldees Barbecue Brisket Rub. And according to Jerby, when Jeremy from Mad Scientist Barbecue asked him if it was the same exact rub, Jerby, I believe it said, it's pretty much exactly the same. Now I know a lot of bottling companies add a anti-caking agent, which is something they may not use at the restaurant. But when you bottle a rub, almost every single one has that. So when Jerby says almost exactly the same, I believe there's something a little bit different, but this rub is fantastic. It tastes really good right out of the bottle. I'm going to be cooking this brisket on my Yoda Frontiersman with the fat cap up. So add enough rub on the bottom. Pat that down. Again, this is a really big piece of meat. You got to season it really well. Then get your sides. All right, that's looking good. Let's flip it and season up the fat cap. Again, some warm water to soften that fat. I love that idea, and you can definitely tell that the warm water softens the top of the fat cap. All right, perfect. This rub is nice and heavy on the pepper, which I absolutely love. And if you're going to do a Texas-style brisket, it better have a ton of black pepper, 16 mesh preferably. All right, our brisket's nicely seasoned. It's going to sit on my counter for about 15 minutes, and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so I'm getting ready to go light up my Yoda Frontiersman, but I want to talk about the wood that I'm going to use in this cook. This wood right here from Gourmet Wood Products, again, is the exact same wood that Goldees Barbecue is using, and you can pick up a box or two at Academy Sports and Outdoors. Now, let's head outside and light up that Yoda Frontiersman. All right, let's light up our Yoda Frontiersman. As you can see, I've got 6 splits of Texas Post Oak from Gourmet Wood Products. Now, these splits are perfect for the backyard smoker. These might be too small for a 1,000-gallon smoker, but for a backyard pit, these are absolutely perfect. I'm going to be lighting the pit with my grill gun from Grill Blazer. This is the exact same grill gun that I used to light up my 1,000-gallon pit at my barbecue food truck. So here we go. All right, our splits are lit. If you guys don't already have one of these grill guns, check out the link below and grab yourself one. All right, so I'm going to let my pit warm up to 250 degrees. Nice low and slow cook, and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so my Yoda Frontiersman is almost at 250 degrees. I'm gonna go ahead and load up the brisket on the top shelf on the left side of the smoker. Slide that shelf out just a little bit. All right, I should have weighed the brisket, but if I had to guess, this is probably a 13-pound brisket trimmed up. Got nice aerodynamic look to it. Again, this brisket is gonna go 100% of the way unwrapped. We'll check on the brisket in about 5 hours. Stay tuned. All right, so we are at the 5-hour mark. Let's take a look at the brisket. I have not looked at it, spritzed, or anything. So here we go. Oh yeah. All right, so there's our brisket. We're starting to develop a really nice bark. That's feeling really nice. Got a little puddling there. All you gotta do is tip that brisket over, just like that. And that fat will come right off the edge there. Now I know you can't see any smoke coming out of this door right here, but trust me, this smoker is on. We're just running a really clean fire right now. I'm gonna let this run for a few more hours, let that bark get nice and dark, and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so exactly 12 hours later, and our brisket is finally ready. Got a really nice dark bark. Got a little bit of pulling here, but that's okay. It's not gonna affect the flavor of the brisket. Let's get the internal temperature. Again, this is really tender. We're reading 200 degrees right here at the tip of the point, right in the middle where I like to check my temperature. We're at 198. Now let's check our flat. We're sitting at 199 on the flat, 198, but it is really nice and tender. It's probing like butter. So the next step is we gotta wrap this brisket in some foil. So I've got a couple sheets of foil paper here. And like I've mentioned in the beginning of the video, I've done plenty of unwrapped briskets before, but the process that Goldees has is this next process right here, which is taking the brisket. Man, that bark feels really good. We're gonna add some beef tallow to the top of the brisket, just like that, and also to the bottom of the brisket. It's gonna help soften that bark because that bark right now is pretty hard, nice and crunchy. So all I'm gonna do now is wrap this brisket nice and tight. And I will be wrapping this brisket twice, so I've got 2 sheets of foil paper. All right, now we're gonna wrap this other way. All right, so this next step is to let the brisket cool down to 165 degrees internal. Once it hits 165, I'm gonna place this inside my PK100 smoker at 155 degrees where I wanna hold it for 12 hours, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll slice into it. Stay tuned. All right, so it's the very next day and I've held my brisket for 12 hours inside my PK100 smoker. Now, just in case you guys are not familiar with the PK100 smoker, all it is a cabinet style smoker. It's a very high-end cabinet style smoker, stainless steel, well insulated. Now, if you don't add any sawdust to the sawdust pan, you're not gonna get any smoke. All it's gonna do is act like an oven, but it holds temperature really, really well. If you guys are interested in that, check out the links below and grab yourself one. So let's unwrap this brisket. I gotta tell you, I could hardly sleep last night because I was so excited. Now, I did smoke this for 12 hours, which is a very long time. I think I've smoked briskets inside my Yoder Frontiersman at 8 hours, so this went a little longer than usual. But again, we did this 100% unwrapped, and look at that bark. Man, it smells so good. Look at this bad boy. Nice and jiggly. Oh my goodness. Let me flip this around here. That bark has softened up thanks to the tallow that we added. So you know what I find interesting is if in fact Goldees is using this method now, they switched it from using butcher paper with no tallow to using foil and tallow. But one thing to remember is that they did earn the #1 spot using their old technique. But again, I don't doubt that this is gonna be good. I mean, it looks good, right? But let's see, let's slice into this bad boy. All right, I'm gonna get me a nice center cut slice right here, right in the middle. I like to jiggle the brisket, and you can see where the fat kind of ends right here. And I like to take my first slice about 1/4 of an inch to the left of that, the end of the fat, which is right here. Man, it is tender. That bark did not chip off on the edges, which is a plus, right? So that's that tallow really softening up the bark so you don't get those edges, those little crunchy edges that kind of break off. All right, so I got one slice. Oh my goodness, look at that. Hopefully the juiciness is coming out on the camera because sometimes it doesn't capture it. But look at that, man. Super juicy, smells amazing. That fat's got a really nice kind of yellowish, maybe even brown color to it. Really good rendering. And again, that's what you get when you get an unwrapped brisket or smoke an unwrapped brisket. That fat really renders really well. But look at this slice. Beautiful slice of brisket. Again, you can see that fat. That fat cap is rendered really nice. Oh yeah. Let's slice into the point and see what we got. Man, look at this. I can't wait to show you guys this slice. It is absolutely savage. Look at this thing. Check out that slice right there. Nice and juicy. That fat rendering is beautiful. Man, this is gonna be good. Still really nice and warm. Let's give it a taste. All right, the moment of truth. Let's taste this brisket. Look at that. Floppy brisket. Smells amazing. I'm gonna get some of that fat cap in there. The flat of the brisket. There we go. All right, first off, that rub is absolutely delicious. The smoke flavor, oh man. Unbelievably good. I can't get over the flavor of this brisket. It's not overly smoky. It's like the perfect slice of brisket. I can see why Goldees is using this method. This is absolutely delicious. Look at this big old point slice, just barely hanging on. Oh yeah. I'm gonna try this point end right here. nice and barky. There we go. All right, guys and gals, I am a believer of this Goldees style of holding the brisket, wrapping it in foil, using some tallow, going unwrapped 100% of the way. This is absolutely delicious. Man, look at this. Just falls apart. It's not too tender. It's actually perfect. Let me get some of that bark, some of that flat. Look at that, nice and juicy. I gotta tell you, this brisket is really good. And this rub from Goldees Barbecue is fantastic. I'm not being paid to say this. This is absolutely delicious. Get yourself a few of these bottles. So my overall thoughts is that this brisket is absolutely delicious. Would I recommend that you give it a shot? Absolutely. Go grab yourself a bottle of this rub, try this new holding process, and you will absolutely love it. I hope you guys enjoyed this brisket video. If this is your first time to my channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. Until next time, Joe with Smokin Joe's Pit BBQ. See ya.